my life I've been searching for something never comes, never leads to
Hey, what's up, VC and everybody out there in YouTube land? Coming back to you for the Spin Doctor and his Vinyl Mayhem YouTube channel. I am going to do this video as a response or thread or whatever you want to call it. I've seen a few videos out there of people doing the 10 records that changed their life, or some. I want to say first video I saw was Melinda Murphy. Shout out to Melinda Murphy. And then I want to say I think I saw Rob Walker, Mazzy, Dylan at Noble, and then a few others as well. Some people haven't exactly stuck to 10, and I have some here that, well, let's just say I have a little bit more than 10 as well. So try to keep this as short as I can, but these are records that I would say definitely changed my life or affected my life in some way or another. Some of these will probably look familiar to you because I've talked about them in other videos, but let's get down to it. Try to keep this short. First one, this is my all-time favorite Billy Joel record. I've done a completely separate video just on this record because last year it celebrated its 40th anniversary. An Innocent Man, a fabulous record. I talked about how when I was a kid, my parents had this record, and I could vividly see the record, looking at the record, and my parents, like I said, they had it, and they had one of those things where you could, they could convert the record onto cassette tape, and we would listen to that in the car. So I just always have that image of this record. And so this was one of the first records that when I started collecting, I wanted to find just some amazing tracks on this. Innocent Man, Longest Time, Uptown Girl, Keeping the Faith, my favorite Billy Joel song. Just that, 50s doo-wop, soulful, Motown type sound to it. Great record, love it. So there's that one. Next, going 90s here. This one is honestly all thanks to my brother. Collective Soul, Hint, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid. This is their debut record. Honestly, not my favorite record by them, but this is the record that got me into Collective Soul. I remember my brother buying the CD in the 90s, and the track that everybody knows and gets stuck in their head, Shine. That song always, just that riff, that chorus, everything about that song is absolutely awesome in my opinion. And this album got me into that genre of music, really. Not really grunge, but just that 90s alternative sound, I guess. I mean, you could call it grunge. I mean, you could almost say trying to be Pearl Jam, but not Pearl Jam. But it came out in 93 or 94. And so, yeah, this is the craft reissue, of course. But yeah, just always vivid in my memory when he had that CD, listen to that song over and over again. Just great song, great album. Again, not their best, but next, this album, I've talked about this, went into heavy detail about this in the tribute to my mom. This was probably her favorite album of all time, to be honest with you. And it's a phenomenal album. Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. Beautiful song. I always have fond memories of listening to this album, listening to that song especially. My mom would play the piano, and she would sing too, but I vividly remember her playing just the piano of that song, and just fond memories of that as well. But just the entire album is great. Celia, love that song. as well. Just like I said, a phenomenal album. Always remember this in the car on CD. You know, just she had it on vinyl as well too. I remember that. But yeah, just a phenomenal album. To me, it's their best. It was their last as well, but just a phenomenal record, and one that I knew that when I started collecting, I had to have as well. Just phenomenal duo, great harmonies, great songwriting by Paul Simon, and that led me to, you know, more Paul Simon. She was a huge Paul Simon fan, and just great memories. Going into the 2000s here, this record right here, I remember this was my lead into Jack Johnson. I had friends that were telling me I needed to get into Jack Johnson. This album came out, so I bought this CD in high school, and just it blew my mind. Just every song on here is a killer song. I played this CD over and over and over again. I remember I had a jacked up truck with 33-inch tires, and I'd go mudding all the time. But I remember just playing this CD windows down, because it was a 77 Dodge, so it didn't really have it didn't have air conditioning, so you had to have the windows down. But I remember playing this thing over and over again, just in the summertime, just listening to Jack Johnson over and over again, out by the lake, out in the mud, just four-wheeling like crazy. And this album was my high school days right here. Actually, it was my senior year, but just so much fun. Jack Johnson, this is, to me, his best album. His first two albums are great as well, but this one right here, Banana Pancakes, Better Together, just so many great tracks on this. Could listen to it over and over again, and just such a laid back album, and just really got me into a better mood each time I would listen to it. And when you're a senior in high school going through a lot of stuff, that's exactly what you need. So definitely going back to stories about my mom, Carole King Tapestry, fond memories. Every single song on here again is basically a hit. And I remember my mom just singing along to every song, and I learned every song that way. Fond memories of my mom, and just learning who Carole King was because of her, and realizing that all these songs were sung by other people as well, and just going down that rabbit hole of, wow, you know, this song was sung by this person, became a hit through this person as well. And, you know, just beautiful songwriting. You know, she doesn't have the greatest voice, but every song fits her voice still. Just a beautiful album, one that you can just listen to on any kind of day, whether you're in a good mood, bad mood, and just be happy that you put it on, because every song fits, no matter what. Just a phenomenal album, and it will always make me think of my mom. So another one that just you know, changed my life because of that. This one right here, the reason I picked this one is because when I was a kid, as you can tell, I'm a huge baseball fan. Talked about that countless times. When I was a kid, one of my favorite movies was The Sandlot, and there's that scene where Green Onions is playing when the opposing baseball team shows up, and, you know, there's the argument. And one of the best scenes in the movie, and so when I hear Green Onions, I automatically think baseball. And so I was like, so I love that song. And of course, this album is just absolutely phenomenal. And when I got older and I looked up the song, you know, it led me to this album. Looked up the album, and you know, you listen to the album, and then you're blown away by the album. It's a phenomenal album. This is, of course, the anniversary one that came out 2 years ago, I think it was. Phenomenal album, though. Love this album. Just killer all the way through. But Sandlot, still one of my all-time favorite movies. Can't get enough of it. And I just, every time I see this, I automatically think of that, being a kid again, watching that movie and hearing You Play Ball Like a Girl, and just, it makes me smile. So definitely changed my life for the better. I've talked about this album this band ad nauseum on my videos. The Struts. This is their debut album, Everybody Wants. And a hard album to find, actually. Now, I didn't realize that when I bought it. I got lucky. But this album, I bought it on CD first, but I discovered them through listening to an interview on a radio show. The lead singer, Luke Spiller, listened to him on a radio show, and I, you know, streamed their music and just fell in love with them. This album came out in 2014 or 15, I think, give or take. But the reason this album changed my life is because it instilled the faith in me that there's still good new music out there in the rock genre, because I thought it was dying out. And this showed me there's still young bands out there that are making good music. And if you are a fan of Queen, David Bowie, the Rolling Stones, this is right up your alley. They just released a new album last year. I showed it in one of my videos called Pretty Vicious. Check it out, it's great. They released 4 albums now. Not gonna lie, the first 3 are hard to find on vinyl. The newest one's pretty accessible. Stream their music. Like I said, you will not be disappointed. This album, though, is still by far my favorite. And like I said, it definitely changed my view on new music, my life for sure. Love this album. Puts a smile on my face every single time I hear it. Taking me back to the early 90s and in my country upbringing. I've told the story before in a video. Christmas Day, stocking stuffer, I had this cassette tape, my first ever Garth Brooks album. Because of that, it's my favorite. It may not be his best to some people, but it's my favorite. And I will always remember being so excited to get to dig down to the bottom of that stocking and find this cassette tape, and just listening in my Walkman over and over and over again to this album, and listening to Standing Outside the Fire, that opening guitar riff, you know, and just listening to it, singing it over and over again. I know it drove my family crazy, just me belting that song out over and over again. I love every song on here, but that one obviously was my favorite. It was the opening track. I wanted to be Garth Brooks. I dressed like him. My mom even made me shirts like his. The album The Chase, she actually made me that shirt. She made me a couple others as well. But I mean, I wanted to be Garth Brooks. That's just who I was. So love this album. It made me want to be a musician. It made me want to be a country singer. It just made me want to be a singer in general. It made me want to be a star. Love this record. Love this album. Love Garth Brooks. Finally got to see him 2 years ago. Talked ad nauseum about this record, so I won't go into too much detail. First album I ever bought with my own money was Eric Clapton Unplugged. Eric Clapton, my favorite guitar player, artist of all time. Knowing that someone could play the guitar like he can just opened my mind, my eyes to guitar playing, listening to Tears in Heaven, Layla, Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, just everything on here. San Francisco Blues, Alberta, Walking Blues, Running on Faith, everything on here just so phenomenal. But just to always be my favorite album of all time. Just can't go wrong with this. Best unplugged album ever, #1 selling unplugged album ever. Just absolutely phenomenal, changed my life for sure. He made me want to be a guitar player. He made me want to learn everything I could about the guitar, which isn't a lot. I'm not a great guitar player by any means, but he made me want to pick up the guitar and play. I talked a little bit about this record. This is a compilation. It's a best of Marty Robbins, I believe, or what is it called? Marty Robbins' biggest hits. This one goes back to being a kid again. My dad was a truck driver. He had this on cassette, this album on cassette. And this introduced me to Marty Robbins. This has El Paso and a few of his other big hits, but this introduced me to Marty Robbins, and I can just still think back to being a little kid riding in that passenger seat of that 18-wheeler as we're driving down the road, going into new places I'd never been before, you know, with my dad, stopping at truck stops, eating at restaurants at these truck stops, and playing at the arcade games. And it was a lot different back then than it is now. People don't know. I work in the trucking industry now, and I tell drivers they don't know what it was like back then. These new drivers, they don't know what it was like back then. But I always have a special place in my heart for this specific album, because this is what got me into Marty Robbins. I have a lot more of his records now, but this one especially is what got me into him. So I always have a special place in my heart because it would remind me of being a kid and riding with my dad. This one right here, by the way, I've lost count, so sorry. Queen, one of my favorite bands of all time. This is probably not one that most people would expect someone to go to, but I got into Queen differently. It wasn't Bohemian Rhapsody that got me into Queen. It was Highlander. And this is technically the soundtrack, the unofficial soundtrack to the movie and television show Highlander. And I love this album. This was the first Queen album I ever bought on CD. And Princes of the Universe, I thought was the coolest song ever. Love it. And this has that. It's got Kind of Magic, obviously, One Vision. Phenomenal song. And of course, this was the tour that they went on when they played at Wembley for those, I think, 6 dates, and their Wembley concert, their biggest concert, right after they did the what is it? Live Aid. So they came back after Live Aid and played Wembley. And so this will always have a special place in my heart because of the fact that it's really the album that introduced me to who Queen really was. And from there on, I just snowballed into the rest of them. So not the one that most people gravitate to, but I love this album. And I think it's probably one of their coolest covers too, besides Queen 2. I think this one and Queen 2 are probably their coolest covers. Let's go back to the 90s again. This one is not because of my brother, this one is because of me. Bush, 16 Stone, I think this is their best album for sure, but learning to play the guitar, one of the first songs you learn how to play if you're a kid of the 90s is the song Glycerine. And so of course you go and you buy the CD that song's on, and it's this one. And then you hear all the other amazing songs on that album, and it blows your mind. And that's what this album did. This opened my eyes to more of that alternative rock that, again, you could almost say is grunge, but not quite grunge. I gravitated more to this than I did to most of the other grunge or alternative rock that was out in the mid 90s. I love this album. Glycerine obviously is a great song, but Machine Head, Everything's In, Come Down, phenomenal tunes as well. This whole album though is phenomenal. To me, this is really all the Bush you need though. Their second album, Razorblade Suitcase, is good too, but this one by far is the best. Like I said, this was another one of those CDs that I just played over and over again in my car or in my CD Walkman when I upgraded to that, just over and over again. My family probably got sick and tired of that because it wasn't as low maintenance as, say, Garth Brooks or whatever, but love this album. And the last one I'm going to show you, and I know I've already passed more than 10, so this is a 3 for Foo Fighters, one of my all-time favorite bands. This is a 3 for, so here we go. This is one of my favorite Foo Fighters albums. I talked about how I got this one. This isn't really people's most favorite Foo Fighters album, but it's one of mine. This was one of the first Foo Fighters albums I bought myself, so I was very excited about it. One by One, All My Life's on here, Times Like These, great album. So actually it was kind of, I bought it myself, but my mom is really the reason why I got it. Then when I started driving a truck the first time, this album came out, and I remember where I was in Iowa. I stopped at a Walmart. We stopped to get some groceries, and I was walking through, and this album had just come out, and I'd kind of not really listened to a lot of new music again, and I was like, oh, Foo Fighters just put out a new album, and I bought this CD, and it just blew my mind, and it really invigorated my love of the Foo Fighters again. I listened to it just over and over again, and it's by far my favorite. That one and the next one I'm going to show you are my 2 favorite Foo Fighters albums, and I saw them on this tour twice, and it just blew my mind. This record is amazing. From front to back, every single song, you can't go wrong with it. They even did a documentary about the whole band, you know, from the beginning of inception to when they made this record, called Back and Forth. It's a great documentary. If you haven't seen it, you need to. But this album is just super phenomenal. Butch Vig, who produced Nevermind, produced this record with them as well. And then, of course, their last record I've talked in, But Here We Are, changed my life because it helped me through my mom's illness and her passing. I've talked about that in other videos as well. Phenomenal record. It's 1A and 1B, honestly, with these 2 records. I love them both. So anyway, that's what I got for you today, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave me some comments. Let me know what you thought about these records. Let me know of some albums that changed your life. Leave me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.